I honestly believe the 2022-23 EuroLeague season was the greatest of all time. The most competitive regular season, record-breaking attendances, the craziest fight ever, a title-winning shot, and much, much more. But just before we start, make sure you are subscribed to our channel as we are giving away this Nikola Jokic jersey to one lucky subscriber once we hit 75,000. The long-anticipated return of European coaching GOAT Željko Obradović did not exactly start out as fans of Partizan Belgrade planned. The team started the season 0-3, collapsing dramatically at the end of the games.
With some time, will take him on, goes for the jumper and sinks it.
A few moments later.
He's taken on! Does it go? Yes, it does! Incredible stuff!
Some people even questioned if Željko is still one of the best European coaches, considering his previous break from coaching, the tough start to the season, and his early Eurocup exit the season before. Although the team wasn't performing at first, the fans at Stark Arena were performing from the get-go and fulfilled all Dante Exum's expectations.
One of my teammates that I had before, he loved Partizan. So he'd always show me videos of Partizan and, their crazy fans.
Also, this was probably the first time I've seen players celebrating with their fans as much as Partizan players did. And this got more and more crazy throughout the season. Soon after, Partizan started racking up wins not only at home but even at hostile arenas like Oaxaca.
New career high in terms of made three-pointers.
Unfortunately for Panathinaikos, Željko's comeback to Oaxaca was probably the best atmosphere PAO fans created during this season. And then the poor results caused empty seats and boos towards their own team.
Yeah, and I don't blame the fans for booing here because Panathinaikos...
While the Greek powerhouse couldn't help to save themselves, there was another team that also had a rough 1-6 start to the season, but managed to turn it around. I am of course talking about Crvena Zvezda. As soon as Duško Ivanović was appointed as the new head coach of Red Star, he immediately held the infamous 5-hour training session, which isn't really clear to this day if the practice actually lasted that long.
But then a lot of people were saying that it was only the practice was 2 hours and a half.
Duško said it was 6.5, but of course that was a joke.
Duško was clowning, I think.
Either way, Duško's strict methods paid off as the team went on one of the greatest EuroLeague takeovers by winning 6 games in a row. One of those wins was also historic in another way, as we witnessed something that has never happened before: the eternal Belgrade derby in the EuroLeague. First derby game showed just how great this derby is and why the EuroLeague needs both of these teams competing every year.
Here's your last possession of your game. Vildoza kicks. Nedovic rises. The Troika!
The second game was played at Alexander Nikolic Hall, where the home team put on a show that matched their rivals. But just like in the first game, the away team came out on top. The final stretch of the season for both Serbian teams was quite different. That win versus Red Star was one of many crucial wins that helped Željko's team secure the 6th seed. On the other side, Crvena Zvezda had to wait for their biggest signing, Facundo Campasso, to debut in the EuroLeague until March, which had them in a rough spot, with the team ultimately missing the playoffs. Now, coming back to Red Star's 6-win streak, it was ended by the most unlikely team to do so. While in the beginning, Olimpia Milano was seen as one of the favorites to win the regular season, they sat at the bottom of the standings for the first half of it. Unfortunately for them, newly signed players were struggling, and injuries to key players pretty much put them out of playoff contention very early. I think what Ettore Messina said in this timeout really sums up their season. Another Italian team who had high expectations for their EuroLeague comeback was Virtus Bologna. But Sergio Scariolo couldn't extend his success from 2022. The only thing I remember about Virtus' season is Teodosic getting into the referee's face.
Oh, now we've got a technical foul. Now who's this against? Because if against Teodosic, he's out of the game. He's out of the game.
Then he got ejected and suspended for a few games. And then later had another moment with Kevin Punter.
And punter Teodosic, I think, letting the emotions boil over a little bit as well.
At least Teodosic wasn't ejected by his own coach, as this fellow Serbian Nikola Kalinic was thrown out of the game by coach Jasikevicius.
Nikola disrespected the team. We will deal with it internally.
I would argue that Šaras was much calmer this season, but not during his homecoming to Žalgirio Arena.
You cannot play one pick and roll. You cannot play one pick and roll defense. Why you rotate here? So stupid, it's unbelievable, man.
Later, he had a conflict with Anadolu Efes, accusing their coaching staff for filming Barca's training session. That received a heated reaction from Ergin Ataman, who stated that he would resign if Jasikevicius could prove it. I think if there was a team who wouldn't do that, that is this season's Anadolu Efes. Based on their results and looking at how they played against some teams, I'm not even sure if they did any scouting or prep in general. The back-to-back champs couldn't string together a win streak, making even the most confident EuroLeague coach give up ahead of time.
This is the summary of our season, and now 99% we will be out of the playoffs.
Efes' star player Shane Larkin was frustrated at the coach, and it all ended with them missing the playoffs and coach Ataman signing with Panathinaikos for the next season. Before we move on, a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, Kicks. Since 1993, Kicks has been a specialist for retro and performance basketball shoes, limited sneakers, and high-quality streetwear apparel. With thousands of constantly updated performance and basketball culture products, they are the go-to place for basketball players and everyone who identifies with the never not ballin' credo. Check out kicks.com for the very best basketball gear in the game and use our special promo code BasketNewsTen for 10% off. Coming back to the video, Efes' Istanbul rivals Fenerbahce had a very different experience, finally coming back to winning ways and even starting the season 5-0. Unfortunately, the newly assembled squad with a new coach lacked some consistency, and Coach Itoudis let his players know all about it.
You have
Their main summer signing Nemanja Bjelica missing 27 games and other injuries didn't help either, as one's first seed team fell all the way down to the 8th seed just before the playoffs.
At home, Motley not budging, Campasso, turnaround three, the rainbow to raise the roof.
Žalgiris was another team that worked really hard in the offseason and changed up their roster and the coach. Finishing dead last season before, this season Žalgiris was a team full of comeback warriors, especially at home.
Rotates to Ulanovas, who beats the shot clock buzzer, counted for Edgaras Ulanovas.
Despite losing their leader Keenan Evans early in the season due to Achilles injury, the team managed to win when it mattered most and secured the playoff spot in the 7th seed. Whilst Evans was putting on MVP-level performances until his injury, there were a couple of guys who were in that MVP conversation. But before all those guys, I would like to give some recognition to one of the biggest surprises of the season, Marcus Howard. The EuroLeague rookie was one of the most fun players to watch, making Baskonia's offense record-breaking.
So you got both Tavares and Marcus Howard with a step back. I told you he couldn't defend him.
One of the usual MVP suspects was Mike James, who had another year full of highlights. My favorite being his 3+1 over Walter Tavares to send it to the overtime.
It's Mike James who pulls up over the top and he's fouled. Oh! Tavares fouled!
However, the MVP trophy went another direction, and I think Sasha Vezenkov is one of the most unique players to get this award. The man literally did not need to dribble the ball to be the top scorer in the very efficient Olympiacos offense. I mean, he literally scored 24 points without a single dribble.
Maitadelo defending Slukas. Bolomboy sets a screen. Now Bolomboy with his numbers shown to Vezenkov from the low post.
Besides their leader, Olympiacos were dominating the competition and finished first in the standings, breaking one club record after another. To sum up the regular season, it was truly a battlefield till the very last game. Teams with 19 wins and 15 losses were on the verge of missing the playoffs. The only other season I can remember that was this competitive in this format EuroLeague was the 2020-2021 one, where the teams had to win 20 games to advance. And just to illustrate the craziness of this season, Alba Berlin started the season 3-0, that was followed by a 12-game losing streak. So now let's look at those playoffs then. And yes, I know there are some teams I haven't mentioned yet, but that's just because they didn't have too many memorable moments during the regular season. One of those teams is Maccabi Tel Aviv, as they really came into the spotlight during their playoff series versus AS Monaco. Even though Monaco played 3 of the 5 games at home, you could argue Maccabi fans made sure there was no home court advantage.
Efes has gone 0 of 2 to leave him now 2 of 4. So Mike James can't find the range.
And now you can just imagine how hostile it got in Tel Aviv. In one of the interviews, Monaco center Donatas Motiejunas even said that the fans were spitting on Monaco's players. All the efforts by their fan base, both at home and away, wasn't enough, as Monaco came through in the decisive Game 5 and for the first time in club's history made the Final Four. Speaking of being in the spotlight, during the playoffs Real Madrid got all the attention for all the wrong reasons. After a relatively steady regular season and finishing in the 3rd seed, they went 0-2 in the series versus Partizan Belgrade. And then one of the craziest EuroLeague fights ever happened.
Now with 5 to go, and there's a foul up top, and there you know it's going to happen sooner or later. Oh boy, oh come on now, this isn't what we want. This is not what we want.
We broke down all the details of this brawl, so make sure to check out that video after you finish watching this one. Following the fight and the suspensions, it all went downhill for Partizan, as the Spaniards became the first EuroLeague team ever to come back from a 0-2 deficit in the playoffs. I'm telling you guys, this was a historic season. Another upset was also on the table, as Fenerbahce was 1 shot away from being up 2-1 against first-seeded Olympiacos. Game 3 had one of the best endings ever, as the teams exchanged clutch buckets.
Vazenkov, let's fly with a 3. Got it! Guduric, pump fakes, let's go, got it!
But in the end, Kostas Sloukas came out on top.
Sloukas flashes back, gets it. Sloukas weaves. If it goes, it'll win it. It goes! Opa!
The next game also didn't disappoint and was full of emotions.
Play aggressive! Play with pride, goddammit!
And at the end, Fenerbahce managed to force Game 5. Many familiar faces came to watch this game, one of them being Kings head coach Mike Brown, who later expressed his fascination about the atmosphere in Piraeus. While Coach Brown came to see Vezenkov's potential for the Kings, it all turned out to be Kostas Sloukas' show again.
Sloukas goes this way, goes that way.
I don't think we need to go into the details of Barcelona-Žalgiris series, because it was a 3-0 sweep. And if this series went to 5 games like the other 3, I think there's no doubt this playoffs would have been the best ever. But anyways, let's stay in Kaunas and talk about Final Four. Before we go into the semi-final and final games, for me personally, the highlight of the whole weekend were the Olympiacos fans who took over Kaunas. And now you can only imagine how much crazier it would have been with Partizan and Maccabi fans making it to Kaunas too. Nevertheless, the Final Four delivered, starting with Olympiacos' epic comeback in the 3rd quarter, which the Reds won 27-2. The Greeks advanced to the EuroLeague final and saw even more of their supporters fly into Kaunas, creating epic scenes before the championship game. On the other side of the bracket, we had the always entertaining El Clasico, which was highlighted by Barcelona's Rokas Jokubaitis breaking his front 2 teeth.
Jokubaitis, he looks like an ice hockey player.
Real Madrid knocked out not only Jokubaitis' teeth, but also their rivals, making the 2nd EuroLeague final in a row. Again, nobody was expecting Real Madrid to do so, especially after being 0-2 down in the quarterfinals. After all the drama of the regular season, all the insanity in the playoffs, what could be the ending to the final? Well, what about 35-year-old Sergio Yui hitting his only bucket in the whole game over giant Mustafa Fall for the EuroLeague title?
Yui working against Foul, beats him with the dribble, pulls up at the elbow, high arcing James, good!
This shot broke all of Olympiacos fans and players' hearts, and reminded everyone why you should never underestimate these Spanish legends.
Real Madrid are the 2023 EuroLeague champions.
For me, the most emotional moment came in the aftermath, as during the press conference, Tavares made coach Chus Mateo tear up.
All the credit for him, because without him, we're not going to be here, because he was the one that believed in us. He deserved it more than everybody.
All the emotions and biases to one or another team aside, I think we saw the most competitive basketball competition in a long time. With so many teams in contention for the playoffs all throughout, with 3 or 4 series needing Game 5 and the final being decided with a game-winning shot. That's what makes the 2022-23 EuroLeague season the best one I ever witnessed. But perhaps you have a different opinion. Let me know if you agree with me in the comments, and also share your favorite moments of this EuroLeague season. Don't forget to check out BM Plus platform for additional content, like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.